Champions League is back, and back with it is all the drama, all the action with the European elite. Guys, let's look into all of the matches and all of the fixtures from this game day, Tuesday. This is the round 6. We're going to be covering Wednesday's games tomorrow, so don't you worry. And in this video, we're going to be covering each and every team who has played. Some games are going to get a bit more coverage, some games a little bit less, but we're going to cover each and every team. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. Atalanta versus Real Madrid. Real Madrid running out as 3-2 winners. We're going to take a quick look at some of the stats. And then look at the lineups and some key performers. Key moments to talk about: Mbappé with his goal 10 minutes in, a brilliant finish, sort of changing the narrative that has kind of appeared as he's joined. This was, I think, one of his most impactful goals for Real Madrid, and it showcased his ability. And it was good to see him and Vinny up front and have a successful spell for as long as that lasted, because he did come off quite early in the game. And we're just going to take a quick look at the lineup just to set the scene for both teams. Mbappe, obviously, as mentioned, started. Vinícius was playing as well. We had Brahim Diaz on the wing, Jude Bellingham just behind, Ceballos and Valverde in the midfield, with Tchouaméni and Rudiger in defence, with Vasquez and Garcia in the wing-back positions. For Atalanta, key people to call out: Lookman, who has been very, very good; Ederson as well, who has been performing at a high level; Gary as well, who has been really good for Atalanta and has been a staple for the team for quite a period of time. So, again, two teams who have established themselves in Europe. I think Atalanta have done it over the last couple of seasons, and obviously winning last season was a big accomplishment for them. The goal from Mbappe put Real Madrid in a good position to start the game, and it looked like they will be continuing in that vein. It was up until a penalty was conceded, and I had a little bit of a problem with the penalty. It wasn't a penalty. Kolasinac goes into the box. Tchouaméni, I would say, put a leg out, but he really didn't. Minimal contact. I would kind of call it a dive, if I'm being honest with you. Kolasinac probably dives a little bit, gets a penalty, and is put away very easily for Atalanta. It does then take both teams into the halftime break at 1-1. And was that fair? I would say to a degree, yes. I would say that the efforts from both teams at that point did probably warrant a 1-1 position in the game. Obviously, Real Madrid did take their goal well, but didn't really push on from that point. It was actually another error which led to the goal for Vinícius. So Mbappe's goal obviously came from a transition where Atalanta lost the ball. Again, Atalanta lost the ball for Vinícius to go through and score, and it was an even easier goal than the first one for Real Madrid. And Vinícius and Mbappe being on the score sheet is something that is very, very impressive. But to be honest with you, Atalanta at that point and up until that point had looked like the better team. As mentioned, Real Madrid were happy to give them the ball all the way up until the halftime period. Coming into the second half, again, once they did score their first goal, it looked like, okay, Atalanta may take their foot off the gas. And following quickly up after Vinícius's goal, Jude Bellingham with a good finish to take Real Madrid to 3-1, and it looked like he was going to be game over from then. We did get a reply from Ademola Lookman, who has been absolutely sensational in recent times, and I think deserves a move, I would say. And that move won't be a cheap one, because I think he's established himself. He should win, I think, Africa's Best Player award, and he should be looking for a big move, potentially to the Premier League, potentially elsewhere. I'm looking at teams like Arsenal. If there's changes in some of the other wing positions in Liverpool, for example, Man United, he's a player that should be looked at for sure. Real Madrid run out as winners. Again, very industry-like, very solid. That's why they are able to come out of these tough European competitions as winners, because they can go to away grounds and get something against a very, very tough team, and a team who knows how they want to play and go about games. Very, very good performance. Highlighted players: Lookman for me, obviously. Ederson, I'm always impressed when I watch him. Jude Bellingham actually had a very, very solid game. Was less a goal threat, even though he got a goal, and more kind of ran and organised and orchestrated that midfield to a higher degree than we have probably seen more recently. Fran Garcia, I'm also going to give a shout out to as well. Vinícius, a star. Mbappe, for the limited time he was on, looked really, really impressive, and I've got to give that to him. So yeah, Real Madrid continue with their progression through the Champions League. We're going to be moving on next to Girona versus Liverpool, and this game was highly contested. Liverpool were in pretty much dominating throughout, and I was just wondering when they were going to get their breakthrough. It finally came from a Mo Salah penalty, and to be honest with you, they deserved it. They're still the only unbeaten team in the Champions League, and they've earned that right to continuously go about their business. And so you got to give them their respect. Honestly, unbeaten, the only unbeaten team in the Champions League is Liverpool, top of the Premier League. Arnie Slot, you deserve all your accolades. I've got to be honest with you. Girona put in a decent display at home, but Liverpool have just too much quality. They know how they want to play, and games like this seem to be quite mundane and standard for them, to be honest with you. And so again, if they can continue this form, no one can really question or doubt why they deserve to be where they are. They're going into these games, they're getting the victories, they're looking pretty comfortable. The defense is standing relatively solid in majority of these games, and Liverpool continue their march. Key players I wanted to call out in the lineup, obviously Mo Salah with his goal. Um, I think seeing the return of Alisson come back into the team is a big one. And overall, I think Liverpool as a team and as a unit, they know how they want to play. And this game was very, very interesting because you normally see Arnie Slot go with either Soboslai or Jones. He went in this game with Jones, and Soboslai, that to me is a statement of intent that I'm really not respecting Girona. I'm not here to defend as much as I would normally would. And that's what you need to do. You need to play killer football in these games where Girona will probably be, looking to shut up shop. We saw it at times with their low block. They weren't really trying to come out and push the pace of the game, where Liverpool, all of the onus was on them, and they got the result, and rightfully so. Next up, RB Leipzig versus Aston Villa. And this is a game I was thinking we're going to be in for a good one. RB Leipzig have been up and down in the Bundesliga. Some really impressive results, some really poor results. Aston Villa have been pretty much in the same vein. They are regaining their form, and this is another step in them doing so. Started off early with a goal from John McGinn, Super John McGinn, again on the score sheet. A little bit of a timeless performance from him against RB Leipzig, an away Champions League performance for him to pull this out as captain of the team. Very, very impressive. The early goal put Aston Villa in a really positive position. However, it wouldn't last for an exceedingly long time. Openda, who we all know about and a brilliant striker, was on the end of a transition and was able to score, making it 1-1. That's one thing that Aston Villa need to really deal with, and it was showed itself not only in the first goal, but it showed itself in the second goal as well, which we'll get to. Before we get to that, Watkins was taken off at half time. His replacement, John Duran, unleashed an unbelievable strike, take it to 2-1 for Aston Villa, and John Duran is continuing to add to his catalogue of amazing goals. He's a player that continues to grow. I call him, and you guys probably have heard it before, a unicorn. He's in that group of striker. I'm not saying he's quality level, but there's the strikers that have the pace, that have the power, that encapsulate some powerful elements, and his shot power, his long range finishing is one of those things that is undeniable. An absolutely brilliant strike for John Duran. It's kind of become the norm, to be honest with you. Put Aston Villa 2 up. That was quickly followed by, again, another transition. Aston Villa lose the ball, and they play some really, really good football. Aston Villa were well worth their victory, but in being so impressive and having so much domination of the ball and moving the ball quite quickly up the pitch, they left themselves exposed. And once they lost the ball, it was very easy for them to be countered. And when you've got a striker like a Pender with his pace up front, you're going to be in problems. And that's what happened. Aston Villa was stretched. He collects the ball, composes himself, fires across to Baumgartner, who I think is a brilliant finish, puts the ball into the back of the net. A wonderful team move. It's essentially 3 passes and a goal. And that's what beats Aston Villa. And that's where some of their weakness lies. When they actually have the ball and lose it quickly, they're not the best at defending transitions. That's for sure. 2-2 is how the game continued up until the last 5 or so minutes, where Ross Barkley had a deflected strike which went in. I don't know if it was deflected or scuffed, but I don't know how it found itself into the back of the net. It was outside of the box, a bit of a long ranger, went across the ground. I think it was scuffed, caught the goalkeeper unaware, and Aston Villa run out as 3-2 winners. Very impressive on their side. Again, European away games, just get the win, just get the victory, just get the points. Don't lose, essentially. And Aston Villa did better than that against a tough RB Leipzig team who sometimes you're not sure who's going to come out and play. and I think this was probably a better version of RB Leipzig than we have seen in the Bundesliga as of recent. Key players to call out: Openda really impressed me with his work for both goals. From Aston Villa side, I've already talking about John McGinn, Tillemans, and Kamara are establishing a partnership, which I think is very solid for Aston Villa and gives them a base after losing Douglas Luiz. And so, again, Aston Villa march on, and we're going to review the table to see where everyone stands after we've covered all the games. Next up, Bayer Leverkusen versus Inter. And I think, from my standpoint, this was always going to be a very, very touchy game. Inter, we know, are solid at the back, team that can't really be moved many occasions, as we've seen, very strong, very durable team. Bayer Leverkusen have kind of experienced some of the lows of this season that they didn't experience last season. The highs of being unbeaten in the Bundesliga and challenging for the Europa League and winning the German Cup. This season, it's not been as good, not as clean sailing. It looks like Bayern are going to run away with the Bundesliga, and Bayern Leverkusen are going to be far off the pace. In this game, I think we knew both teams were going to be battling for a long time. It was going to be a tight game, no doubt about it. However, Bayern Leverkusen found themselves as on the end of a winner, resulting from a corner that was cleared. Witz was on the wing. I think Barella could have done more to shut him down, if I'm being honest with you. Doesn't. A deflected cross goes into the box, bundles around, and Michele is the one to put in the back of the net. Pretty good strike for the centre back, to be honest with you, and wonderful scenes for Bayern Leverkusen to get that victory. They wanted to be in the Champions League. They're in the Champions League. It hasn't been the best season for them, but again, they've come in against a tough Inter team at home and got the job done. And not many people can say that they've done that. Looking at the team, key people to talk about from an Inter Milan standpoint, again, they weren't overly impressive. They were there to shut up shop, stay strong, and not concede and get out of here with a draw, which you can't really hate on them for. They know the team that they are. From a Leverkusen standpoint, I think the team performance was unbelievable. They did deserve the victory. Key people that I want to call out is Michele for the goal, obviously. Granit Xhaka kind of ran the midfield. And also following Witz as well, that work that was done before the goal, even though he doesn't get credited with an official assist, it was brilliant work to get the ball back into the box and cause Inter problems that close to the end of the game. So overall, Bayern Leverkusen continue with their Champions League journey, and we'll see where both Inter and Bayern level up when we look at the table. Next up, Salzburg versus Paris Saint-Germain. And what can you say about this game apart from utter domination? Clearly, PSG deserve to run out as winners. They dominated the game from start to end. In the highlights that I saw, two brilliant goals from Ramos and Mendes. Mendes coming and marauding all the way from his left back position for a brilliant finish. And again, PSG winning away games in Europe is never easy. Salzburg, again, have not had the best time in the Champions League or in their own league. And so this is a bit of a change for them, to be honest with you. They normally dominate the Austrian league. However, last season and this season, there seems to be more of a struggle from their side. PSG have all the quality in the world. To be honest with you, Hakimi with 2 assists has to be shouted about. Ramos with his goal, as mentioned, was a brilliant finish. Midfield 3, which is very impressive and dominated, and it really wasn't that difficult. Ruiz, Vitinha, and Neves. PSG should get through to those knockout stages easily enough, and if they don't, questions should be asked. Next up, Brest versus PSV. And this is a game where PSV were actually expected to come out with a win. Brest, again, haven't had the best time of it in Ligue 1 this season. PSV have been flying in the Eredivisie, and for large parts of this game, they dominated. But one thing you need to realise, but when you go Brest at home, forgive me. One thing you need to realise when you play Brest at home is that their crowd is absolutely electric. Absolutely electric. And so PSG, for all their domination, for all the amount of possession that they had of the ball, they couldn't break Brest down. And when that corner came in just before the stroke of half time and that went into the back of the net, from that point on, it was a wrap. The crowd were fully behind their team. Brest seemed to get a second win after that goal. And as much as PSV huffed and puffed, they couldn't find an equaliser or a winner because coming into this game, they were the favourites. They were the ones expected to get the victory. And on the other opposite end, Brest were the team that got the victory at home, showing that they've got a fight and they still have a chance of progressing through the Champions League. Next up, Bayern Munich versus Shakhtar Donetsk. Shakhtar actually took an early lead to the shock and surprise of everybody. It looked like there could be a shock win on, but that was quickly exterminated nearly 6 minutes on with an equaliser and then a flurry of goals. Key thing I want to talk about in this game is Michael Olise and Musiala, two incredible players. I want to talk about Elise and Musiala, two incredible players who deserve their flowers. Elise, who was obviously sold um, to Bayern Munich from Crystal Palace, has, you know, come in as a duck to water. No surprise there that he's dominated in the Bundesliga and is continuing to show his quality in the Champions League. He's a player that I think can go very, very far. Musiala, we know about his quality as well. A goal and assist this game. And yeah, I just want to highlight these special talents. Bayern Munich have these two which they can build around. There's questions in other areas of the pitch. You know, Muller was up top this game. He's getting older. Sane, there's questions about his future. But Elise and Musiala, if they can hold on to that, you can build a very, very good team around them. And Bayern Munich should be qualifying from this Champions League as automatic qualifiers, if I'm being honest. Anything less than that would be deemed as unacceptable. So they continue their push and their fight on. And Vincent Company has done pretty well with this team, wins in the Champions League. Some tough times as well. Their start wasn't the easiest. Doing very well in the Bundesliga, and so we'll see where they end up in comparison to last season. Next up, Dynamo Zagreb versus Celtic. Not much to call out here. Celtic had more of the ball. Dynamo Zagreb had slightly the better opportunities, and them running out as 0-0 isn't surprising. Dynamo Zagreb are notoriously a hard team to face at home. Celtic have been, apart from the blip that they had against Borussia Dortmund, have been pretty good away from home in the league. I think in the league they haven't lost a game. They haven't even drawn a game. They've won all of their away games, and in the Champions League, I think they've only had a slight blip with the Borussia Dortmund game, if I'm not mistaken. So, not much to talk about here for both teams. They'll be hoping that they can have an outside chance of the playoffs. I would like to see Celtic have that opportunity, but again, these are games that they would probably want to win if they were, you know, having a better chance to do so. So it's going to be interesting for both teams, but a 0-0 draw, I think, was a fair result for this game. And lastly, we're going to be covering Club Brugge versus Sporting. And again, I could talk about the game and the moments that I've seen from both teams, but what I want to really talk about is Sporting Lisbon and a little bit of their streak since Amorim has left, and it's gone downhill, and it's gone downhill really, really badly. Obviously, the loss to Arsenal wasn't good. Following up, they've had some league troubles as well. And now coming back into the Champions League, it's continued very much here. Club Brugge at home in the Champions League have been pretty strong, if I'm not mistaken. However, Sporting from where they were before, I believe in the top 3 or top 4 in the Champions League, are now going to be hurtling down that table. And you wonder what this is going to mean for the future of Sporting. Obviously, losing their manager was one thing. Victor Gokres, we've spoken about. A couple more of their talented defensive players. Questions are going to be out there for Sporting. Club Brugge continue their climb. Haven't done that well in the league this season, but wins like this can set them up for future success in Champions League games and in the league. So, guys, that's all of the games, the 9 games that we covered for Tuesday. Let's take a quick look at the table. Liverpool sit atop, 6 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. Absolutely immense from the Reds. You've just got to hold your hand out and say they've done really, really well. Bayern Leverkusen, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Obviously not performing the best in the Bundesliga, however, a different story in the Champions League. Aston Villa with the same record as them. Inter Milan as well with their first defeat to Bayern Leverkusen. So that's such a scalp for Bayern Leverkusen to get. Brest, who you can't believe it, 4 wins, a draw and a loss. Absolutely incredible from them. Barcelona with 4 wins as well. Same results for Borussia Dortmund, so it's going to be a very, very key game tomorrow. We're going to take a quick look at the fixtures for tomorrow. Bayer Leverkusen with 4 wins and 2 draws, and Atalanta with their 3 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat. It's quite interesting because even with the win for Real Madrid, they're still quite far down the table. and I believe it's with 2 games to go. So the onus is really on them, and it feels like they will probably be in a play-off position, if I'm not mistaken. Teams who have played the 6 games, who we potentially should be concerned about: PSG, who we've already mentioned, had a tough time and a tough start to the Champions League campaign, so they will need to be watched on. Salzburg, who have been very, very disappointing, as well as RB Leipzig, have not won a game. And both of these teams have been in the Champions League before, so you would expect a lot more from them, if we're being honest. But as we continue through, we're going to be looking at the Wednesday games, guys. Let's take a quick look through that. Key games I want to talk about will be Arsenal versus Monaco for sure, Juventus versus Man City, Borussia Dortmund versus Barcelona. I'm trying to think if there's another one. A couple more interesting ties. I mean, I've got a sneaky eye on Benfica versus Bologna, 2 teams who I've been watching quite closely in the last couple of weeks. And I think we're going to, again, cover each and every game. There's something for everybody. Guys, hopefully you liked it. Leave a like, leave a comment. I want to know your game of the day, best player of the day. I want to hear it all. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.